They say the days of cheap cars are over, but just before lockdown 2020, the Classics World team were issued with various amounts to buy budget project cars. My kitty was 750 quid, but I spent a fraction of that on something of a gem.
Did I just see a puff of black smoke?
Oh Lord. Is this a rally? Oh no, maybe not.
Oh, but it's
Gentlemen.
got racing stripes, so...
Peugeot 205, iconic, 1.8D Junior. It's not in its first flush of youth.
It makes some other clattering noises, doesn't it, Joe?
It does. Now,
They did that when they were new, Aaron. It's a Peugeot.
It's quite tidy, though.
What did you pay for this? 400 quid.
Another 400 for the indicator lens that you can't buy anymore.
Nah, I already have spoke to a man who can do me a brand new one for £7. It's cheap, it's cheerful, and so am I in this instance, because
I dispute the cheerful.
despite being in rather good condition, this car has done 201,000 miles.
Imagine doing that many miles without listening to the radio.
Because it's a Junior, it's a very basic spec. So
But then they put a tow hitch on it. Yes.
no washer, no wiper. We do have a tow hitch for towing caravans.
I'd unlock the door, but the catch is broken.
Under this layer of grime beats a heart of magnificence. This is a gem in a haystack, this is. Most of what's wrong with it is simple stuff. It's a missing indicator, which is simple. It's a missing parcel shelf, which is simple. It's a
There's
broken
some rust
radio.
on the rear arch.
Oh, that gear knob, good God.
Do you know what though? I reckon wax some white steels on this and some of those stripes on the grille.
And a GTI engine.
350 quid left in the budget, and that is all going to go on turning this into the gem it deserves to be. Sweet as a nut.
It's refinement.
Oh, yeah. Oh, look at this.
You be careful with her. I'll give them a minute. Sometimes it's best to let them explore in isolation.
This is flat out.
This is hilarious.
This is a real...
He's not going to stop it.
Oh, mate. He knows you're not going to get there in time.
Oh my god, I'm going to fall out the window. Stop.
Yay!
400 quid.
400 quid. I think he's done well.
A few weeks later, the improvements began. First up was replacing the broken indicator lens with a brand new one, bought for just £7.95. I was told online that the best way to do this is to take the grille off, which means you can then take the headlight off, which then releases the indicator. So there were two bolts holding the top of the grille in there, and because they're 28-year-old rusty bolts that frankly have probably never ever been out, with the minimum amount of force I could possibly put on them, and with WD-40 in there as well, I still managed to snap both of them. So that's going to be a problem for slightly later. For now though, with both these bolts undone, the grille does then just lift away, I believe. Let's just coax it out there. So the lights are held in by these pieces of wire that just seem to hook over. So I believe if I push that out, we're already one away. There's a 10mm nut on this side, and I'm holding that with a spanner and cranking against it with a ratchet. After 10 minutes of fighting a rounded bolt head and hammering the Torx bit into it to try and hold it in place, my efforts were eventually rewarded. Yes! The two nuts holding the adjuster in place have practically zero access to them, so I have to thread my arm under the headlight to hold the bolt head and crank the spanner about 5mm at a time to undo it. Eventually though, the bolts are out, and after unplugging everything, the headlight assembly can be lifted out. The indicator and the headlight are held together with a wire clip and a ball and socket joint. With both of them painfully released, I finally separate the knackered old indicator lens. The only thing we need to transfer over from the old one is this adjuster unit held on with that Phillips head bolt there. You do need a screwdriver for that obviously. Here's one I prepared earlier, and this one is a ratcheting screwdriver. Lifts away like that. So that slots through that channel like that. With the indicator and the headlights slotted and clipped back together, refitting is a reversal of the removal process, and after skinning my knuckles again to refit everything, the snapped bolts are drilled out and the grille's refitted before it's time to test. Oh yes! The next thing to sort in the Peugeot is probably the most infamous bit of it, and that is this gear knob. Now I've actually had to put a glove over it just to be able to use the thing. You can start to understand why it was all gaffer taped up, because it's just... That's not meant to happen. Now, we could of course buy a replacement one, either brand new or second hand, or we could get some sort of aftermarket one or something like that, but instead Paul has recently invested in a 3D printer. 3D printers used to cost thousands, but a more basic domestic version can now be bought for about 150 quid. Someone on a 3D printing website actually modelled a 205 gear knob, so Paul downloaded the file, filled the printer with resin, and then left it to print for about 10 hours. We've actually made a gear knob for the 205. That is awesome. There's something kind of nice about making your own car parts. We genuinely are living in the future. And the plan is we're going to glue this into here, so we've still got that OEM feeling of having the gear layout on the top of the gear knob, which frankly is just the perfect finishing touch in my mind. And then we can just press that into there like that and let glue take its course. The next morning the glue is dry, and with some Sikaflex to hold it on, the new gear knob can be slotted into place and then left to set. In the Peugeot, the jack is actually held on by a captive threaded section on the driver's side inner wing. I unscrewed it to get it out of the way to do some more under bonnet work, and it wouldn't really come out. It was quite tight in there. So I gave it a bit harder of a yank, and when I did, a bit of the inner wing came out, and it emerged that the bit that the jack actually screws into was completely rotten. A bit more stabbing with a screwdriver revealed that there was quite a lot more rust there than I would have liked, and the more I prodded, the larger of a hole opened up. It's not pretty on top, and it's not much better underneath, but we've got a plan. A flapper wheel takes off paint and any old underseal to work our way back to good metal. Next, the rusty section is cut out as square as possible. When you see how much of it was rusty, it's not exactly comforting. A new flange is needed first, so it gets mocked up with cardboard before being cut from a sheet and then welded on. This is what causes you rust. And the inner arch, massive load of mud in there. The hole itself then gets transferred to another cardboard template, then to sheet before being welded in all the way round. With the plating done, the welds are protected with seam sealer before the top is given a coat of yellow paint, the bottom undersealed, and the Peugeot's rust repair is done. With the welding done and a few more cheap fixes like a new head unit, repairing the door lock tab, and shining up the bumpers with some plastic polish, I joined Jeff and Aaron in their Ford Puma and Range Rover respectively to reflect on my time with this ultra budget 205. A year ago this car was sat in the fens, basically abandoned. A month ago it had a hole in the front wing that you could stick your fist through. It shakes, it rattles, there's countless bits missing or broken. The driver's side window can be pushed down with your hand. Driving it at 70 miles an hour on a motorway is like being in an allotment shed on a windy day, and I'm fairly certain I have contracted something off of this steering wheel, but I just do not care. I love this little Peugeot. This has been a loyal, faithful old friend to use over the last few months. It's never put a foot wrong, it's never broken down, it's never once let me down or failed to do what I've asked of it. Yeah, it's rough around the edges, it's tatty, but here's the thing. It's got character, it's got charm, it's got that indescribable personality that actually makes us connect with classic cars. It's not been the easiest cheap classic to own, if I'm honest. A lot of the parts are either absolute unobtainium, like a new gear knob, or they're preposterously expensive, like a new parcel shelf. But because this is only a 400 quid car, you make do and mend. You 3D print a new gear knob. You try making a Berlingo parcel shelf fit, and then it splits in half and then doesn't fit. So I then used a spare Fiat Seicento one I had and cable tied that up. And it works. Cars like this teach you about how to work on cars, how to make the best, how to fix and repair stuff. That was what I wanted to do by buying a classic car for so cheap, to show that anyone, regardless of their age or experience or budget, could get into a cool old car and have a go. I still love it for its quirks, for its flaws, for its character, and that's what it's all about.